Okay, I think we're live now. Welcome. This is a 60-minute seminar. My name is Chris Denwood. For those who don't know me, if you want any more information about me or any of my work, you can just visit my website, chrisdenwood.com, and you can get all my links, my social network links and products and services all from there. Okay. So today I'm very happy to be here to deliver a seminar for Bujin TV and also to celebrate World Karate Day. Yesterday evening, me and my students performed the 100 Kata Challenge along with lots of other dojo around the world. And I think it's an absolutely fantastic event this to be able to bring everyone together from around the world, supporting karate and commemorating the historic kind of pathway that brought us all together. In this seminar, I'm going to be delivering some work on Kihon waza. I've entitled the seminar A Practical Exploration of Karate Kihon. So what we're going to look at today is just the blueprint really of karate. And I've chosen this subject because I think it should hopefully transcend across the many different styles. One of the big questions I had in my training, just one second, I'm just going to just make sure that's working okay. Yeah, I think so. One of the big questions I had in my early training was how everything kind of connected together. It was a big thing for me. I felt as if I had a lot of jigsaw pieces. I had certain ways I was doing things in Kihon, certain ways I was doing things in Kata, certain ways I was doing things in kumite or in application, and they didn't really connect. Okay, so it was always a challenge for me to try and understand how everything connected together into a more holistic picture. So what I want to share with you today, just the way that I work Kihon in my dojo and how I try to make sense of it for my students. Okay. Now, if you look at Kihon as a principle, first of all, the word Kihon, a lot of people tend to mistake it as meaning basic and implying the fact that not only you have basic, but you also then have intermediate and advanced. So you have something else other than Kihon. So you have this kind of basic level, and then you kind of transcend that, or you come away from that to learn more intermediate and advanced study. In actual fact, Kihon really for me is a more accurate definition is fundamental. And if you look at the definition of basic and the definition of fundamental, they're not the same thing. Okay, fundamentally something that's really essential to everything that we do. And I think that helps to really more accurately describe what Karate Kihon is all about. It's the very blueprint from which the whole system sits. So with me today, I have Alison and Ewan. These two of my students, and hopefully together we'll help share some of that work with you. So if you want to come and train along with us, by all means do that. If you just want to watch, that's absolutely fine. Usually when I deliver these seminars, it's a two-way. I'm usually doing this via Zoom so I can see everyone. But because this is only one way, I thought having a couple of students here would maybe help present some of these ideas. Okay, so to start with, we're just going to work through what we will call our 6 fundamental movement pathways. And everyone should be very familiar with those. Okay, the first one is skite, which is our thrusting hand. The second one is hikite, which is our pulling hand. And then we have agiyuki, which is a rising receipt. Sotuki, which is our inside to outside movement. Uchuki, which goes from outside to inside. And of course, some styles, they swap those names around. And gedambarai, or our lower sweep. Okay. And those 6 fundamental movement pathways are really the fundamentals of which everything else rests. Okay, so let's make a start. If you just go into shizen touch, just natural stance, and then left ski, hidari, good. Okay, so we're going to start with just our skite, okay, our strike, our thrust, and our pulling back. Okay, so just nice and slow to begin with. Okay, so if you want to join in, please do. Okay, so ich, nice and slow, good, excellent, ni. Good. So what we're trying to do here is to align the bones, the joints of the arm, okay? We want to stabilize in the back. So we want to try and pull the shoulder down and slightly forward so we get a connection here in the back. Okay, thump. Good. Shi. And we're trying to keep the elbow as well under all the time. So the elbow should feel like it's brushing the side of the body, okay? So we don't want to lift the elbow up, okay? Hey. Just nice and slow. Good. Excellent. Hey. Good. Hey. Good. And in terms of alignment of this technique, we want to make sure that it's not, we don't want to be in center line like this, okay? We want to actually move it out a little this way. This is structurally a much better position. So what I always kind of suggest to my students is imagine that you've got a fist in the middle, a center line, and then you've got the other fists just outside of that, okay? This way, okay, ready, hey, ich, slow, good, hey, ni, excellent, thump, good, shi, good, and we should be quite strong in this position here, okay, hey, good, hey, excellent, okay, and we'll just try 10 a little quicker, okay, hey, ready, ich, ni, thump, shi, go, rook, sich, hutch, cube, do. Good, well done. Okay. Then the next technique, we're just going to run through these first and then we'll talk about them in more depth. Okay. So the next one is our agyuki here or our jodanuki. All right. So nice and slow to start with. So ich, ni. So you notice straight away that the elbow is down. Okay. What we really don't want is the elbow flaring up like this. Yeah, because here we've got quite an acute angle here in the elbow, and we're really only relying on the triceps muscle for stability in this position, okay? Whereas if we drop the elbow down, we can connect into the back. This is a much stronger position for the arm, okay? Thump. Good. Shi. Go. And we have the forearm around about a fist from the head, like this, okay? Rook, sich, and you notice the first thing that they do is they bring their elbows in, okay? So rather than having their elbows out, they bring their elbows in to this position, and they find this kind of cross position here. This is very similar to jujuki, this cross position that we see in a lot of kata, okay? And having the elbows down in this position, again, fixes the shoulder in a nice place, and then from here we can bring this structure straight up this way, okay? Ready? Hey! Good. Hey! Excellent. And we'll try 10 again, a little quicker. Okay, so ready. Ich, ni, thump, shi. And you see from here, look, the press here. This is quite a strong structure, okay? Go! Rook, sich, hutch, coup. Ju. Excellent, good. Okay, the next technique we have is soto ryuki. This is our outside receipt, okay? So the hand comes to this position here. So we move the arm around and this way, okay? So nice and slow to begin with. Ready, ich. Excellent, okay, ni. So we're aiming for the wrist joint to be around about in line with the shoulder, this way, okay? And if Alison just turns to the side for me, you'll see here that we've got a nice triangular shape with the arm there, okay? So we don't want this arm too flat because, again, this angle is too acute and is quite weak, okay? So we want to be in this position here. And the upper arm is around about a fist distance from the body, okay? So, again, if it is too close, here, this will crumble, okay? So I want to be in this position here, okay? Hey, thank you. Okay, and again, ready. Hey, nice and slow, good. Hey. Good. And another concept we're trying to work on here is circularity. We'll talk about that once we've been through all these movements in a little bit more depth, okay? Hey. Good. That's it. Strong position. Hey. Good. Hey. Excellent. And you notice here, hey, when she moves around, she'll bring her arm right through. So she's trying to get her elbow a little bit past this hip line so that she covers the whole of her body box from here, shoulders down to hip, this way. Okay, ready. Hey, good. Hey, excellent, good. Hey, okay, and let's try 10 fast. Ready. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, good. 7, 8, 9, 10. Excellent. Good. Okay. And then the next movement is the uchuki. So now we're covering inside. So the hand lifts up and we cover inside this way. Okay. So nice and slow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good. Now you notice here now we've got the wrist now starting to cover the opposite shoulder, but we're in exactly the same structure as we were before. We've got a triangular shape here, triangular shape, and the fist, the arm here, fist distance from the body. Okay, so again we've got a nice strong position. Hey, good. Hey, and notice as well that they're not bringing their arm too far out away from their body before they draw the hand in. Everything is kept quite close. Okay, this is really important because we want to keep our arms close to our body because this is where our strength is. The more that we take our arms away from our core, the weaker we are generally. Okay, so we want to try and stay within this frame. Okay, ready? Hey, good. Hey, excellent. Okay, and then a little faster. Ready? Hey, hey, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Excellent, good. Okay, and then the final technique in our Kihon set is Gedan Barai. Okay, so now we're sweeping low this way. Okay, let's try slowly. Ready? 1, good. 2. So again, now we're still covering this hip line. This is important. Okay, fist distance again. Okay, arm straight this time. Thump. We're really trying to control the elbow position here. So notice when Alison brings her hand across, she doesn't lead here with the elbow. She keeps the elbow tight to the body. Okay, and again, this hand coming in stays nice and tight. And then this position. Okay, hey, hey, excellent. Hey, that's good. Okay, and then 10 fast. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good job. Hi, yummy. Good. Okay, so there's just a brief introduction to our core fundamental set, okay, of our 6 movement pathways. Okay, do you guys want to just sit down? Hey. Okay, so we're just going to talk about those in a little more depth. The first thing I want to discuss about is this idea of circularity, okay, which is quite important. When we're performing our techniques, it's really important that every motion we do contributes to the end product, okay? So if we're moving away from something and then moving back towards something, we've effectively got a stop point, okay? So if you can imagine if I was to throw a ball in the air and the ball went up in the air, it slowed down, and it would start to change direction again, okay? This is almost the same as if we were performing our movements like 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, like this, where we've got one arm coming up and then we change direction effectively to move ourselves back into this position here. And that's often where there's practice early on, because we need to find reference points. So we often teach that this is a reference point, this is a reference point for here, this is a reference point for here, and that this is a reference point to here, okay? But we need to be able to break through those and transcend into more circular movement, all right? Ewan, can you borrow you for just 1 second, please? So if I was to use Ewan as a target here and I was going to punch, okay, you could say that when I'm moving my hand back, I'm moving away from the target. And then if I change direction, I can then throw my punch, okay? But the point at which I'm changing direction is a very square movement. I have to literally stop and restart and go the other direction, okay? However, if I made that movement more cyclical, more of a circle, like this, rather than a piston, okay, what it means is that as I'm moving back, I'm not really moving back, I'm still moving forward because everything is contributing to this, okay? So the energy that I'm using in pulling back starts to contribute to the net effect of the strike, okay? Thanks. So if I try and demonstrate this maybe on these pads. So if I had 3 techniques I was going to throw, let's say this is quite a common combination that I use to demonstrate this. If I was going to throw a palm heel into the pad, then a hammer fist, and then an elbow strike like this, okay? I've got 3 different types of strikes, 3 different ranges. I've got a fairly long range shot, I've got a mid-range shot, and I've got a close range shot, okay? Now I could work that in quite a linear fashion and do the first technique, stop here, then do the second one, stop here, and then do the third one like this, okay? But if I start to add more circularity to the movements, I can get much more power in the shots and I can get them to move much more fluidly, okay? So this retraction becomes the start of this. And this retraction becomes the start of this here, okay? So instead of 1, 2, 3, where I've got this set up, stop, set up, stop, set up, stop, what I really need is where I'm moving in a much more dynamic, fluid way, okay? This way, okay? So let's look at putting that back into the Kihon waza, all right? So what does that mean in terms of Kihon? Well, if I am moving through, let's say we're doing Soto Ryuki, okay, out to receive. If I set up here and stop and then come to here, what I'm doing is I'm hitting 2 dots. So if you can imagine a join the dot picture, okay, like a puzzle. I get to the first dot, I stop, and then I take my pencil towards the second dot this way, okay? What I really want to be trying to do is to join those dots in a smooth fashion. So what we're going to visualize now is instead of straight lines, a circle. So we've got a circular path moving around like this. And as my arm comes down, almost imagine this is like a roundabout with traffic, and I'm trying to meet the traffic. So I'm trying to cut into the roundabout, meet the traffic, and then come to this position here, okay? So rather than getting this 1-2 movement, it's coming around in a circular fashion this way, okay? And you'll notice also that the other hand, the hand that's pulling back to the core, is also doing the same thing. It's moving back in a circular fashion. It's not moving in a 1-2 way, okay? The same is true for, say, Gedanbarai, okay? Because at this point, I'm lifting my hand, what looks like it's coming up to come down, up to come down. Whereas in actual fact, if I can make it more circular, what we're really seeing is this part of the circle, okay? So I'm coming in to the circle, then back out, into the circle, and back out, okay? So the first real tip I could give you is to try and make your Kihon waza more circular in nature, all right? So should we practice a little more, okay? So if you practice uchuki, okay? So hidari uchuki. So uchuki is a common one because we always want to set up with the hand coming out, and then we bring the hand in like this, okay? But you can see, obviously, that makes quite a square movement from here to here, here to here. If we can try and think of a more circular action where the hand comes up through the side of the body and in, you see this movement here, here and here, okay, then you can make a single movement much more effective, okay? So nice and slow. Hey, 1, 2. So instead of coming up first and then across, what I'd like you to do now is to try and get that to blend nice and neat in, okay? So ready, hey, so single move, good, okay? Hey, single move, excellent. Hey, single move, good. Hey, hey, and single move. Hey, good. Hey, good. Hey, doing good. Hey, well done. Okay, do you want to sit down? Okay, so now what we want to look at is the context of Kihon waza. What are they really for? Okay, now if you imagine the common interpretation of these ukiwaza, these receipts, as being blocks, it doesn't take much study to realize that they don't really work in that way. Okay, so again, maybe Alison, if I brought Alison. Okay. So if I asked Alison just to put her hands like this, okay, and then I am going to go from here and I'm going to try and touch towards her face this way, okay, touch towards her face, and I want her to try and just stop me, okay, like this, stop me, okay. So I'm a little bit far away. I'm in this position, and she can stop me no problem, okay. Easy to do, okay? Now, if I'm at this range, she's starting to smile because she realizes it's impossible, ready, to stop me, okay? I can get in here, no problem, yeah? I don't even have to try, all right? And it's not because I've got any skill, per se, over Alison. It's just simply because at this range, action always beats reaction, okay? There's just no way of getting out of that. So if I'm trying to do a movement that is like this, or is like this, or is like this, against an attack at this range, it's never going to work. Okay, it's much better to defend yourself. I just borrow you, yeah. So if Ewan was going to throw up a big swinging hook punch at me like this, okay, rather than me kind of receive it like this, or try to find some sort of arm movement like this, which is effectively meeting force on force, it's a much safer position for me to actually move inside the range of that, okay? Just touch. So as he throws this, if I crash inwards, I'm in a much better position, okay, to be able to defend myself. And this works so much better under pressure than any type of ukiwaza, all right? So we know straight away that the ukiwaza aren't really for defending yourself against strikes, because at that range, they don't work. At a longer range, they work fairly well, okay? If I'm at a longer range and I've got more visual reaction, and if Ewan was to throw maybe a jab at me, yeah, I can cover it with my hands, okay? Because I can kind of see this coming, okay? He throws a cross or something, I can see these coming, so I can parry them, okay? However, here, I stand very little chance, okay? Unless my arms are already in play, and that's the key, okay? So that is where really these ukiwaza come alive. It's not because they're archaic and they don't work. It's just the context to which they work in. They work much better at a tactile range. Okay, they work much better at an attached range. So if I was in this position and I already had control over Ewan's arms, then I can start to make use of these movements in a much better way. Okay, I can pass much easier and make use of these movements in a much more practical way. Okay. So let's look at a couple of those, right, to start with, just to get you to maybe to understand that in a bit more depth. So let's say, for instance, now that I am in a close range position here, the first thing I need to be able to do is, just come forward a touch. If my hands are down here, I'm in the worst possible position. Okay. What I need to have is my hands up and in play. I need to have them here. I need to be talking with them, and I need to be in a slightly staggered stance. So I've got some sort of ability to be able to cover, okay, or attack if I need to. And if you look at this position, it's not a million miles off this position, or this position, or this position, or this position, okay, which we see in the Kihon waza. Every time we move in and out of any of those ukiyo waza, the receipt techniques, we're bringing our hands in to center line. We bring the elbows in, and we're covering this range, okay? So that's the first thing to kind of understand, that quite often when we focus on Kihon waza, we look at the pictures, we look at the snapshots, we look at this. If I was to take a picture of Agiyuki, this would be a good position to take a picture, right? Maybe not this position though, or this position, but in actual fact, the whole of the movement has validity, okay? And we need to understand not only the structure of the shapes, but also the transitions, how you're moving in between each one, okay? So let's take a look at the Gedambarai, and we'll look at a few ways in which we can use that to clear limbs. So we see in Naihanshi kata, we have Gedambarai here in the Kagiyuchi, okay? We also see in Pinan kata, where we have the Gedambarai coming down, and sometimes we'll step through and punch, okay? But we see that quite often. So if we were to use that against, as a defense, as we've just discussed, it wouldn't be very realistic. But if I was already connected, it'd be really useful to me, okay? So if I was in a position where maybe Yuman's hands were up and I was trying to attack, but his hands were in the way, I can use Gedambarai to pull down, okay? Then I can hit over the top this way, all right? So I'll do from this side, this position here, we come across, use Gedambarai to pull down just a little so I can clear this strike path, and then I can attack, okay, with whatever I need to on this side. If I'm on the inside line from here, and I want to get to the outside line, again, I can use Gedambarai in a couple of ways. I can either come over the arm from here and hit, or I can scoop under the arm and carry out like an arm drag sort of technique. If I wanted to move him, for instance, if he was in the way of me and I had an exit point here and I needed to escape, I could pull him away and go towards the exit, okay? All using Gedambarai. But because I'm connected, I need to make sure that my transition is optimal, okay? And that's where a deeper study of Kihon really helps. Because if I was going to do this arm drag, if my elbow was up, if I was trying to pull this arm down and my elbow was up, it's a much more difficult job for me, okay? If you put a little bit of resistance in that, it's hard for me to move this arm with my elbow up. But if I just drop my arm, you can see straight away that I'm getting heaviness on his arm there, okay? Likewise here, if I try to pull from this position, it's pretty weak. But what's the difference? If I just bring my elbow down, it'll pull him down in a much better position. So I'm trying to move a barrier down. Again, if I pull with my elbow up, it's much more difficult. But if my elbow is down and comes into my core, that's much easier for me to do, okay? Good. Okay. I'll just quickly switch over one time. Okay, so the next thing I want to discuss is this idea of the movement pathways in the Kihon waza. One really important attribute is the way that we move our arms, whether we're moving into or out from our core, okay? And it's a feature that appears in karate right the way through. And it all starts from this ski and hikite idea. Generally speaking, as our arms are moving away from our core, and it could be in any direction, okay? Generally, what we're seeing in karate is we see an extension in the elbow joint, obviously, okay? We also see a pronation of the hand, and we also see an internal rotation in the shoulder, okay? So if I was to move my arms out there, or was to move them out here, we tend to see this movement, okay? Now, we can move them out this way. Nothing's stopping us. okay? But generally speaking, we tend to see this, okay? And also, as we move our hands back in towards our core, we see the opposite, okay? The elbow flexes, the hand starts to supinate, and the shoulder externally rotates. And this is what we see throughout the whole of the Kihon waza. So we're just going to do a little practice on one exercise to try and explain that in a little bit more depth, okay? So you guys want to move behind me. So what I'd like you to practice is if you just put your hand down like this, and you guys just follow on, yeah? So imagine you're in a Gedambarai position, okay, with your hand maybe open, and just put the other hand underneath so it rests just a fist distance from your body, okay? And all I want you to practice doing is rolling your hand up in a circle like this. So bring it up to the top, and then reverse it and bring it back down to the bottom. This way, okay? So you bring it up, and then bring it down this way. Up and down. Again, up. And when you get to the top position, try and just have the wrist in line with the shoulder. This position here, okay? And down. Excellent, good. One more time, up and down. Okay, and you notice that this is quite a natural movement. But what I've done is I've gone from a pronated position, extended, okay, internally rotated, and I've moved upwards into a supinated position where I'm flexed and I'm getting an external rotation in my shoulder this way, okay? So this is really the essence of all the Kihon waza, this idea, okay? Now if we just do that one more time, so we come up. Now what I'm going to do is try and continue that circle round. As your hand starts to come around in this direction, you'll notice that your shoulder starts to feel a bit off, right? It starts to lock up the shoulder a little bit. If you wanted to continue that circle all the way down back to the bottom, the only way you could do this without kind of impacting the shoulder would be to start rotating your hand and extending in your elbow. It's the only way you'd be able to kind of get back there, okay? Otherwise, you'd be locking your shoulder, okay? So let's try that again. So we come up, we get to this position here. If we continue that going, we'll find a spot where it's getting a little bit uncomfy. Then if we just carry on rotating, you'll notice that I'm starting now to pronate this arm, and I'm starting to extend here in the elbow, okay? And that's bringing me back down to the start. And if I went in the opposite direction, the same thing is true. As I come around, it's very difficult for me to get this circle going, right? I have to actually literally start to twist. And as I twist like this, what I'm actually doing is I'm starting to get some external rotation in the shoulder. I'm then starting to flex in the elbow. I'm then starting to supinate the hand back to this position again. Okay? And you can try this on both sides. So you come up, we get to here. And this is kind of sometimes a warm-up drill that we do just to get people to understand this movement and feel this kind of discomfort here and how to get around it to get back to the start again. Okay? And then to move this way. The only way I'm going to get around this circle now is to start externally rotating in the shoulder, flexing in the elbow, and supinating up into the hand to here. Okay, and you can practice that a little faster then and try to get that to happen nice and smooth and fluid. Okay, so I'm not finding any stop points or jerky points in the movement. Okay, it's happening nice and smooth in one direction, nice and smooth in the other direction. Okay, and the same on the other side, nice and smooth one direction, and nice and smooth in the other direction. And again, a lot of people do this as a warm-up drill. Okay, but if you actually think about it, it's explaining quite a lot about Kihon waza. It's very good. Okay, now we're in this position and I've locked my elbow here. Okay, I put my elbow into position in this point, and I'm going around this circle, and my elbow isn't moving. It's staying in the same position here. Okay, it's flexing and extending, but staying in the same point in space. Now, what would happen if that elbow started to move? Okay, well, let's take a look at that, right? If I was in this position here and I lifted up to this position, you could say that I'm in Gedambarai and I'm going to lift up to Sotuki. Okay, so if you do that with me, yeah. So we're here, we're going to go get Ambarai, we're going to lift up to Sotuki. Okay, and you can do it with your fists if you want to resemble the technique more, or open hand is fine. Yeah, here to here. Okay, now let's think what would happen if I extended in the shoulder joint. Okay, so if in the shoulder joint I'd done this movement, I extended it like this. Okay, so I went from here to here. As I was moving around this circle like this, okay, so as I'm flexing, as I'm externally rotating, as I'm supinating, I'm also going to now extend. I want to do this basically with my shoulder. Okay, so this is without that shoulder extension. If I take this arm away and start to extend a little more, I want to start to see this. A little more, I'm going to start to see this. More still, I'm going to start to see this. Can you see what it's starting to create? Okay, it's starting to create hikite. So my hand, with extension of my shoulder, doing all the things that we talked about here, is performing hikite. Okay, so effectively, this movement. Now, if I flex my shoulder again, I should find Sotuki. So this and this is the same structural position here and here. The only difference is that I've articulated in the shoulder to move it to a different point in space. That's it. Okay, so we try that together. So we go from here, we're going to lift up, we're going to find Sotuki. That's it, go back down and take the hand away. This time extending the shoulder as you do that same movement, and you'll find hikite. Okay, and the more you extend, the straighter this will start to look. Okay, from here to here. And of course, if I then lift that up to a chudan position rather than a gedan position, rather than gedan barai, if I lift it up to ski, and now I've done exactly the same movement. I'm doing this action, but with extension of my shoulder, I start to create this. Start to create hikite. Okay. So I hope you can see that relationship. Okay. So it stands to reason then, if we were in this position and we moved down from here to here, and we had the elbow in a fixed position, if we started then to say, well, okay, if I'm here and I do this, and I know that that's this movement, if I then do this movement, this part of the circle, but I do that now with shoulder flexion, I'm going to create this. Okay, so I've gone from this position down, I've started that here, and now I've flexed in the shoulder. It gives me the thrusting dynamic. Okay, and that's something that's really important because everything is connecting up now. Everything's starting to connect. Okay, so thank you. Okay, so then if we've got that connection, then we can then understand that all of these Kihon waza are based on optimal movement pathways, how to move your arms to and from your core in different ways, in different reference points, okay? And if you look at those 6 pathways, those fundamental movements that we've discussed here today, they occur in the majority of karate styles, if not all of them, okay? Most karate styles will have some sort of thrust, some sort of pull. So that's moving away from the core and back towards the core. They have something that goes from a low position to an upper position. They have something that comes from an upper position and sweeps down. And then they have something that comes from an inside line to the outside, and from the outside line to the inside, okay? And that's no coincidence, because those are the 6 ways in which we move these limbs about our core, okay? They're kind of like the cardinal points. So what does that mean in terms of our karate? Well, if that's the case, and if that's all the fundamental movements, then surely we should start to find that in our kata. So our performance of our kata should start to resemble those principles. And it does, Okay, so if we look at, say, for instance, I'll just give you some examples. So say we have, if we do sotuki like this, okay, yeah. If I just added a second one on, okay, then you're starting to look at kata like sochin, sanchin, okay, and tensho kata, these type of movements where the hands come out. It's just basically two outside receipts. Obvious, right? If I had an outside receipt and a lower receipt at the same time, then we're looking at kata like naihanchi kata, pinan sandan kata, the hands do this, okay? If I had, just off the top of my head, if I had agiyuki and a gedambarai, okay? Now we're looking in the realms of, say, jion kata, the hands come to here, okay? If I had two agiyuki, okay, and if you guys, maybe you guys join me on this one, yeah? So if we're here, you can do this together. So you've got two agiyuki. You can see this in kata like pasai, okay? But watch, if I join them here, in this position, you can see that I've got this in a much more structurally sound position, okay? So I'm here, okay? Now if I just bring these down, if I keep the angles exactly the same, and I just bring them down with my shoulders. So it's my shoulder joints that are moving these frames in different points in space, okay? If I bring these frames down to shoulder height like this, then I open my hands and make two shito from here, okay? Then this is an optimal position for my hands, right? If I start to step back with one leg, this hand will start to move itself backwards and away from the other hand, okay? And you can start to then see how these positions are starting to be generated, okay? And if I had, let's say we had Uchuki on the right, then we had Agiyuki on the left, and again we put these into strong frames, okay? Then if we moved into, say, a Kozudachi, then we open this hand, and then we twisted the hip, we're starting to find now kata like Kushanku kata, okay? And if we had Sotuki and Gedambarai, okay? This is in a square position, but then if we changed the angles and we moved into an angled stance and we opened up our hip more, like this, but kept the same structure, okay? We're just turning the hip over, we're starting to see kata like Pinan Godan, okay? All right, thanks. So what you can actually do is you can map all the fundamental pathways and these structures into your kata, okay? And really, your kata should be a representation of those fundamental pathways. They should connect very cleanly together, okay? So what we can see now is that we've got a fundamental set of movements that are like the blueprint for pretty much all the movement pathways, all the cardinal movement pathways, okay? Then we have the kata that sit on top of that kind of give those life, give them specific life, okay? Because each kata has application, okay? And the movements can be applied in lots of different ways depending on your strategy, okay? But essentially what gives them life, first of all, is the understanding of what they may mean, but what's more important is how they work, okay? And this is quite an important analogy I often give. Is kind of like if you were, imagine if you were an artist, a really good artist, you could draw really well, then it really wouldn't matter if you used a pencil, a pen, a paintbrush, a kind of spray paint, a piece of charcoal. It wouldn't matter what you use, what tool you use to make that drawing. It would look really good because you were good at art. You had the skill, okay? But if you were not good at art, if you couldn't draw to save your life, okay, then again, whether you used a pencil, a pen, the spray paint, the charcoal, crayon, again, it wouldn't matter what you used, your drawing wouldn't look very good, okay, because you don't have the skill behind it. So it's when we look at bunkai, we've got to look at both attributes. We've got to look at what the movements may mean and how you can utilize them in combative application. But also, do you have the engine working for you? Do you have the blueprint working for you? Do you understand how the pieces connect together so that you can move optimally well? Okay. Because these positions here, when you look at them, in our fundamental training, we stop. Pump, pump, we stop. Pump, pump, here. Pump, pump, okay. And we also stop in kata. Okay. So practicing my hanchi kata, we stop, we stop, stop, we stop, we stop. Okay. But if we're moving in circles, then the opportunity to stop is it's not mandatory anymore. Okay. If we're moving in straight lines, then and in squares, then we have to stop. Okay, because we have to change direction. But if we're moving in a circular fashion, then the opportunity to carry on is presented. Okay, and that's essentially how the human body operates. If you imagine something like ski, a punch like we've just talked about there. Okay, although this looks like a straight line, it's actually made up of circles, isn't it? Okay, it's made up of an extension of my elbow joint, which if I was able to carry that on, you can see it's about a pivot, right? So it will move in a circle. It's reflection here in the shoulder, and of course, if I can carry that on, I can create a circle. And it's also a pronation of the arm. And if I could carry that on, it would be a circle. So by combining this circle, and this circle, I can create that movement. Okay, but essentially, the human body works in a circular fashion. Okay. So let's go through some Kihon again, please. Okay. So please try to follow on and maybe think about some of these principles as we're moving through the basic techniques. Okay. So we'll start with ski. Okay. Ready. So nice and slow. Ready. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you've got to see here that this movement, okay, isn't a punch. Okay. You just relax for 5. It isn't a punch. It is a movement pathway. Can it be used as a punch? Yeah, of course it can. Okay, but can it be used as other things? Absolutely. All we're basically studying here is how to move our hand optimally from a position by the core out to a peripheral point. Okay. So if I had my arm in this position and I wanted to move it over here for whatever reason, okay, then yes, I could move it like that. But if I move it like this, it's quite an isolated movement. Okay. If I bring it into my core first, using these principles, and then out to that point, it's a much more integrated movement. And what we're doing here is we're basically using this principle of ski. Okay. So again, take it easy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good. And then agyuki. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sotuki. 1, 2. So working on the circular movement. 3, 4, 5. Uchuki. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And get upright. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good. Okay. So hopefully in that you can start to see some of those principles that we've talked about in action. All right. Thanks. Okay, so another thing that's quite important with Kihon is the integrated use of the body. Okay, and we've already started to discuss this, but I just want to touch on it a little bit more depth. Imagine if you were going to, let's say you're going to press a weight above your head. Okay, in fact, I have just pass me one of these. Ishisashi. So you've got a weight, right? This is Ishisashi. Okay, so I have this weight here, and I'm going to put it out like this. Okay, now I'm going to press this above my head. I can't go too high because my ceiling, right? But if you had a weight in your hand and you wanted to press this above your head. If you're doing it like this, you'll be putting a lot of tension into this side delt, okay? In fact, this would be a good way to practice lifting a weight to train the side delt, okay? In fact, if I could take my legs out of the equation, I will get less momentum going for my legs. So if I sat down or I knelt down, for instance, I'm now taking my legs out of the equation. So now I'm really starting to isolate in the arm, okay? And better still, if I was able to lock my whole body off and just practice moving this one arm or lifting this arm like this with nothing else going on, if I could lock myself into position, that will provide the best stimulus for that side delt, okay? And that's how a lot of modern day gym equipment works, okay? If the goal is to isolate and train specific muscle groups. But when we want to move in an optimal way, what we have to do is we have to use more compound movements. We have to integrate our body more, okay? So we have to train in a slightly different way. If instead of purposely trying to isolate just this side delt, if I was thinking more about the movement, what I want to do is I want to get my hand above my head, okay? Then if I was in this position, and instead of having my hand here, I looked at the principles of Kihon, right? So I want to now supinate the arm and bring my elbow into my body like this, okay? Now, straight away, this is a much stronger position for me. It feels much more comfortable to be able to hold this weight. I could hold this weight in here much longer than I could out here, okay? And then if I wanted to press it above my head, if I used the same idea, if I know that I'm extending in the elbow, then if I start to pronate here in the hand and I start to externally rotate in the shoulder, I'm getting this movement here above my head, okay? And then if you want to bring it back down, I do the opposite, okay? I come down, I start to supinate, I start to flex in the elbow, and I start to internally rotate here in the shoulder, which brings my hand back to this position here, okay? So if I do this, I'm putting a challenge on this, this single muscle, okay? If I do this, what I'm starting to do is I'm starting to use the body in a more integral way. And this is exactly the same as how we should work in Kihon, okay? So what we're trying to do is to move the body in a more efficient way. Yeah. So just thinking about that principle then, why is that even important? Because if I was going to use ski, for instance, as a strike, okay, then why is it important for me if from here to the contact point, I'm really not even that bothered about what my arm's doing, okay? Because let's be honest, this isn't the only way that you can punch. There's loads of different ways in which you can strike, okay? And sometimes lifting the elbow, for instance, raising the shoulder, dropping your chin is a much more tactical basis at close range, okay? It helps to cover me. Sometimes it can get limbs out of the way if I'm hitting from here, okay? So it seems almost like that I'm breaking the rules a little bit. But that's only if you consider the fact that 99% of this motion, there's no challenge in it, okay? I'm not under any demand at all in terms of the arm. It's not like before when I had the weight where there was a challenge all the way through it, okay? It's only starting to challenge me at this contact point when I'm getting some resistance, okay? So this is what I'm trying to say, is that this movement isn't really a punch per se, okay? Yes, it can be used as that, but it's an optimal movement pathway. And again, the key lies in its range. So let's say, for instance, if I just turn, I'll give you some examples of that. If I want to use this in a more optimal way, close range, say I'm going to use it for, I've used it for so many things, right? Say I'm going to use it to hyperextend this elbow, okay? So I'm going to pull this hand back to my hip, and this one I'm going to send out and hyperextend this elbow, okay? Now I have a challenge. I have a demand at this point in my movement, okay? So just like I had here with when I was using the weight, okay, this is just like having the weight, it's having the demand. So this is why I have to use optimal movement mechanics throughout the whole of the motion. Because now if I was out of structure, okay, and you just resist this, right? Just bend a little so it doesn't hurt your elbow, yeah. But if I was out of structure and I try to hyperextend this elbow, I'm gonna struggle, right? But if I find the structure that the Kihon gives me, and then I start to hyperextend, that's a whole different thing. Okay. And the same is true for, let's say I'm on this side. Let's say I'm going to do, I don't know, wrist lock like this. Okay. From this position here. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to thrust my arm towards the center line and attack the wrist. Okay. Now, if I was out of structure here, okay, and you resist this, yeah, he's going to be able to resist this movement. Okay. If I find my structure, it's already going, right? You can see that, yeah? So if I find my structure, it's already there. Now if I start to move, it doesn't take much. Yeah, you can imagine if I done that all the way through, the effect it would have, okay? And that's just a couple of examples of how ski could be used, right? If I'm in a clinch position and I can take the head and I can hyperextend here, okay? Again, if I'm using the ski movement, I'm in demand. I'm in demand here. I'm not in demand at the end of the movement. Okay. Excellent. Good. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Do you want to come back up? Okay. Good. So there was just a few ideas around the karate Kihon, just to share what we call the fundamental six, the six movement pathways that we kind of work towards, how they function, how we try to see them, how we try to integrate them together, how we use them to connect into our kata, and a little glimpse of how they operate in our application. Okay, so this hasn't been a workshop specifically just showing application. Of course, I could spend an hour just going through different applications for Gidambarai, different applications for Agiyuki, for Sotuki, for Uchuki, but I don't think that would have been of as much benefit. I think the importance of this seminar was really more about understanding the movement pathways and how to work optimally with your arms. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that. Okay, once again, thank you for having me. I've really appreciated it, and have a fantastic World Karate Day. If you're doing your 100 kata challenge today, have a great time doing it. Okay. Again, if you want any more information about me, chrisdenwood.com. Okay, just visit that website and you'll get everything there. Okay, so thank you guys. Hey, thank you everyone.